Good morning, all. Now we discuss the topic Josephson effect. In 1962, B.D. Josephson predicted theoretically that Cooper pair tunneling through a very insulating layer. Okay, that is, he predicted that Cooper pair can tunnel through a thin insulating layer in the order 2 nanometer. Okay, that is, if two superconductors are held very nearly or between two superconductors, a thin insulating layer is placed, then the superconducting electrons or the Cooper pair can tunnel through the insulating layer. That is, if two superconducting metals are placed next to each other, separated by a thin insulating layer, then a current would flow in the absence of any voltage. Okay, then through the insulating layer, a current would flow. This effect is indeed observed because if the barrier is not too thick, then electron pairs can cross the junction from one superconductor to the other without dissociating. Okay, we know that if a Cooper pair is moving, there is no resistance occurs due to the lattice. If it breaks, if the Cooper pair breaks as electron or it becomes normal electron, then there must be a resistance, then there must be some potential or some voltage. So here the barrier is not too thick, then the electron pairs can cross the junction from one superconductor to other without dissociating. This is known as DC Josephson effect. Okay. Josephson also predicted that if a constant non-zero voltage capital V were maintained across the tunnel path. Okay, here we applying some potential, some non-zero voltage across the barrier. Okay, then an alternating supercurrent would flow through the barrier in addition to the DC current produced by the tunneling of unpaired electron. Okay. Here we additionally given a non-zero voltage across the tunneling barrier, then an alternating supercurrent would flow through the barrier in addition to the DC current produced by the tunneling of unpaired electron. It is also proposed by Josephson. This is known as the AC Josephson effect. The frequency of the AC component. Here we termed as an alternating supercurrent would flow through the barrier. Then the frequency of the alternating current is omega is equal to 2 EV divided by H cross, where V is the applied DC voltage. Okay. Then the frequency component is the omega is equal to 2 EV divided by H cross. It is irrespective of the material used, and hence the value of E by H can be determined more precisely. Okay, using this method, this frequency is independent of the material used. Okay, then we can obtain the precise measurement of E by H cross from these setups. Okay, if a DC voltage of 1 microvolt is given, it produces a frequency of 483.6 megahertz. Here, the expression is given for frequency. It is angular frequency omega. Omega is equal to 2EV by H cross. Or if we express the expression for F, linear frequency, then F must be equal to 2EV by H. Okay, F must be equal to 2EV by H. Then an voltage of 1 microvolt produces a frequency of 483.6 megahertz. And related to this, some question also asked in the previous question paper. Okay, there is a DC voltage of 650 microvolt given. Then what will be the frequency of the AC component in a semiconductor? Sorry, in a superconductor. Then we will get a value of 483.6 megahertz into 650. Okay. Further, if here we applied a non-zero voltage V maintained across the tunneling barrier, okay, then with that voltage, with that AC voltage, if we applied an RF voltage, an additional RF voltage is also applied with that DC voltage, then it will cause a DC current across the junction. This is the Josephson effect. There is two types of effect. First is DC Josephson effect and second is AC Josephson effect. The DC Josephson effect is saying that if two superconducting metals are placed next to each other separated by a thin insulating layer, then a current would flow in the absence of any voltage. That is DC Josephson effect. AC Josephson effect say that if a constant non-zero voltage is maintained across the tunnel barrier, an alternating supercurrent would flow through the barrier in addition to the DC current produced by the tunneling of unpaired electrons. It is AC Josephson effect, and the frequency of the AC component is given by omega is equal to 2EV divided by H cross. Now we go to the BCS theory. The BCS theory is very complicated one, but in our syllabus, it is mentioned that we have to go through a qualitative study only. Okay. The BCS theories mainly contributed by Bardeen, Cooper, and Schrieffer. In 1950, Forlich suggested that ions in superconductor crystalline lattice itself must participate in the interaction of electrons. This disruption of crystal lattice caused by moving ions bring more obstacles for passing electron and in effect cause ordinary resistance in metals. The electron phonon interaction itself causes superconductivity. So this is self contradictory. Okay, in some case the electron phonon interaction have superconductivity, and in some case and the electron lattice or the phonon interaction produces resistance. A strong electron phonon interaction appears to be favorable both to superconductivity and to high resistance. Strong interaction of electron phonon interaction appears to be favorable both superconductivity and for high resistance. Then what will be the difference in both cases? A weak electron phonon interaction means that superconductivity is unlikely to occur. The best ordinary conductor do not become superconductors. It is a solution to self-contradiction. At temperature below Tc, the lattice electron interaction is stronger than electron-electron Coulomb force. We have mentioned it is in the previous slides. That means at the temperature below the transition temperature, the lattice electron interaction is stronger than the electron-electron Coulomb force. Then there must be a chance to form a Cooper pair. In ordinary metals, the electrical resistance is the result of the collision of conduction electron with the vibrating ion in the crystal lattice. Bardeen explained superconductivity using a different theoretical picture based on Forlich's suggestions. Superconductivity occurs because the superconducting state has lower energy than the normal state. Cooper developed the theory by calculating what happens when two electrons are added to a metal in the presence of an attractive interaction. In the presence of an attractive interaction, no matter how weak, two electrons added to the Fermi sea will form a bound pair even though kinetic energy of the added pair is higher. Such a pair is called Cooper pair. The interaction that attracts the electron one another can viewed as a scattering event involving two electrons and phonon. The energy lowering from the formation of a bound state will overcome the additional kinetic energy of the electron when the electron of a pair have equal and opposite momentum. The number of the largest number of energy lowering scattering process can occur between electrons of equal and opposite momenta. Such bond electrons are Cooper pairs. In 1957, Bardeen, Cooper, and Schiffer introduced the BCS theory. The BCS theory involves the electron interaction through phonon as mediators. The electrons moving through the lattice distort the lattice, and the lattice in turn act as on the electron. This interaction is considered to be emission and reabsorption of phonon, or it is termed as virtual phonons. In the microscopic level, the BCS theory is expressed using Feynman diagram. In my discussion, I have omitted such higher things. I only mentioned about the momenta and energies. Now there must be lattice electron lattice interaction. The lattice electron lattice interaction strongest when two electrons have equal and opposite momenta and spins. Let an electron of wave vector k1 emits a virtual phonon q, which is absorbed by another electron k2. This is the explanation of the Feynman diagram. Okay, so we take only the explanation here. That means for the first electron, the wave vector become k1 minus q, and it is absorbed by another electron. Then it becomes k2 plus q. That is the first electron scattered as k1 minus q, and the second electron scattered as k2 plus q. It is scattered with the help of the phonon. Okay. If the phonon energy exceeds the electronic energy, the interaction is attractive. So such a case is happened in the case of Cooper pair, that the interaction of the lattice or the phonon interaction exceeds the electronic energy, then the second electron only sees the positive charge. Then it experiences the attractive force rather than the repulsive force of first electron. Then the second electron attracted towards the lattice. Okay, then the Cooper pair is formed. Okay, so in the background there is, with that lattice there is an electron, but this electron, the second electron, attracted towards the lattice, and in that lattice it is bound with the first electron. Superconductivity occurs when this attractive interaction dominate the usual repulsion. The energy of the pair of electron in the bound state is less than the energy of a pair in the free state. This difference of the energy of the two states, that is the free state and the bound state, it is the binding energy of the Cooper pair. It is an important thing that the energy of the pair of electron in the bound state is less than the energy of pair in the free state. If the electron are separated, the total energy, okay, that is greater than the energy of the Cooper pair. So in that case, the difference of that energy is used as the binding energy of the Cooper pair. At the temperature is less than critical temperature, the lattice electron interaction is stronger than electron Coulomb interaction. The pairing is complete at 0 Kelvin and is completely broken at critical temperature. The energy difference between the free state of electron and the paired state appears as the energy gap at the Fermi surface. The normal electron state have above the energy gap, and superconducting electron state are below the energy gap at the Fermi surface. BCS theory predicts many electron ground state as well as the excited state for the superconductor in the range 0 to transition temperature. The Cooper pairs are not scattered by the lattice points because of their peculiar property of smoothly riding over the lattice imperfection without ever exchanging energy with them. This is the things about in the BCS theory. Now watch this video once more. The sage, they explained things may be cleared from here. we say that in the BCS theory that the energy of the Cooper pair is small when compared with the energy of two separated electrons. And also the scattering does not occur for the Cooper pairs. Actually, we know that electron is fermion. Fermions satisfying a condition. Which condition? Pauli's exclusion principle. So, two electron cannot be occupy the same energy state. But what about phonon? Sorry, what about boson? Boson does not obey Pauli's exclusion principle. Then they can simultaneously exist in same state. Then what is the difference between fermion and boson? The half spins are fermions, integral spins are bosons. And we know that electrons have half spin. An example of boson is helium nuclei. In that case, integral spin. Okay. Of we think about the Cooper pair. Cooper pair means it is a combination of two electrons. Okay. Then the sum of spin of the Cooper pair may be 0 or 1. If the two electrons have half spin plus spin, then added to 1, or if one has up, one has down, then total spin is 0. Okay, then look at the video. This is express the wave functions of fermions and bosons. An electron can occur one electron at any state, one state. Just look at here. If there are here so many electrons here, if they are normal electrons, the energy state goes to up to this level. Okay. If two of them are combined to form boson, they can stay at the ground state, lower state, isn't it? So the energy must be very less. And the reason for their moving also explained with that. As this is boson, they can move through it with same energy. Okay. If it is fermions, different levels are occupied. So we go to the next topic, that is types of superconductor. Superconductors classified into two types, type 1 and type 2, according to the condition that is the superconductor obey the Meissner effect. Or we can classify it according to this magnetization curve. When we increasing its magnetic field, at some point or at the critical field, it sharply go to the normal state. Okay. Initially, it is in superconducting state. Then the magnetization increases. And at the point when H is equal to Hc, it will go to normal state. But in the case of type 2 superconductor, the magnetization increases up to a point, then it decreases gradually before completely going to normal state. Then first it increases, magnetization increases up to a field Hc1, and from the field Hc1 to Hc2, the magnetization decreases. When reaching at Hc2, it completely go to normal state. Then in between Hc1 and Hc2, type 2 superconductor, it is in the mixer state. We have mentioned this case in the case of two fluid model. Okay. in the mixed state or the vortex state, there may be conduction electrons or the normal electrons and super electrons. Okay. So now we go to the classifications. The superconductors are classified type 1, superconductors are classified as type 1 and type 2 superconductors. The type 1 superconductors, as also known as soft superconductors, and type 2 superconductors known as hard superconductor. A superconductor which exhibits complete Meissner effect is called type 1. Type 1 superconductor exhibit complete Meissner effect. That means when the value of the magnetic field greater than critical field, it becomes normal conductor. Or we can say that it exhibit perfect diamagnetism below the critical field Hc, which is of the order of 0.1 Tesla. These material give away their superconductivity at lower field strength. So we called it as, why we call it as soft superconductor. This material give away their superconductivity at lower field strength. Examples are type 1 metals like aluminum, lead, and mercury. Then the type 2. Type 2 is hard superconductor. They do not follow Meissner effect strictly. In this case, the magnetic field does not penetrate this material abruptly at Hc. Rather, enters the material slowly with increasing field. So, why we call it as hard superconductor? Okay, the magnetic field does not penetrate this material abruptly, but it enters in the material slowly with increasing the field. They are characterized by a lower critical field Sc1, which is the field at which the magnetic flux begin to enter the superconductor, and an upper critical field at which the superconductivity disappears. For the field between Hc1 and Hc2, the material exists in what is termed as mixed state or vortex state, in which both normal and superconducting regions or normal electrons and superconducting electrons are present, or two fluid model. Okay. The magnetic field penetrates in the form of condensed flux tubes. Examples: all high temperature superconductors, metal alloys, complex oxides, ceramics, boron, doped diamond, and silicon, niobium, vanadium, and technetium. It is the examples of type 2. A material can change from type 1 to type 2 on the substitution of some magnetic impurities. Now we go to a special topic, that is London penetration depth. It is also not mentioned in our syllabus, but sometimes questions are asked from here. So I discuss it here. In 1935, F. London and H. London described the Meissner effect and zero resistivity by adding two conditions, that is E is equal to 0 and B equal to 0 to the Maxwell's electromagnetic equations. According to them, the applied field does not suddenly drop to 0 at the surface of the superconductor, but decays exponentially according to the equation H is equal to H0 e raised to minus x divided by lambda. When we discussing the Meissner effect, we have mentioned that when we cooling the superconducting specimen in an external magnetic field, the magnetic lines of force expels out from the specimen. In 1935, London Brothers describe that the applied field does not suddenly drop to 0 at the surface of the conductor, but it decays exponentially according to the equation H is equal to H0 e raised to minus x divided by lambda, where the lambda is called the London penetration depth, where H0 is the value of the magnetic field at the surface and lambda is the characteristics length known as the London penetration depth. Then the London penetration depth can be explained as it is the distance for H to fall from H0 to H0 divided by E. Okay, when x is equal to x is the distance, when x is equal to lambda, h must be equal to H0 e raised to minus 1, or h must be equal to H0 divided by E when x is equal to lambda. So London penetration depth is the distance for which h fall from H0 to H0 by E. The maximum value of H is H0. Okay, then the penetration depth, London penetration depth, lambda is the distance for H to fall from H0 to H0 divided by E. And the penetration depth does not have a fixed value, but it varies with temperature, as lambda is equal to lambda 0 divided by 1 minus T by Tc whole raised to 4. Lambda is equal to lambda 0 divided by 1 minus T by Tc whole raised to 4, where Tc is the transition temperature, T is the that particular temperature, and lambda 0 is the London penetration depth at absolute 0, and lambda is the penetration depth at the temperature T. Questions also asked related to this also. Now the applications of superconductivity. Low temperature liquid helium superconductor have been used to fabricate high field magnet and some electronic and radio frequency devices. The superconducting magnet have been employed in NMR spectrometers and NMR imaging, that is used in medical diagnostics. For effective magnetic shielding, superconductors are used. And this is the famous one, SQUIDS, that is superconducting quantum interference device. The expansion of SQUIDS is asked in some question papers. Okay, that is the superconducting quantum interference device. In computers and informations processing, superconductors as used. And one of the stunning application of superconductors is in the maglev, magnetic levitation. It is employed in Japan. There, Japan is used to move high-speed trains using the maglev technology. Then SQUIDS, superconducting quantum interface device. skewed magnetometer, which involves supercurrent properties of Josephson junction. Low temperature superconductor are being used for fabricating skews. The main application of skewed are to detect small fractional change in flux, geological layers in different minerals, and to detect NMR signal at low temperature, etc. This is the end of the chapter. Thank you.